deeps in the Jahannam cluster, the Adeptus Sororitas is having a quarantine bonanza, purging heretic filth with the flamer. But me's and my freebooters sneaks on in to fish out some gubbins for a flash clientele. And just as the Grots finds it, we get attacked by the stinking Death Guard. Grab your choppers, boys, and let's take the fights to them. I'll show you why I'm the boss.
Welcome everyone to a battle report for what will be one of my final games of 10th edition 40k, and it's quite the lineup too. The mission is Purge the Foe, meaning you get primary for owning objectives and for destroying enemy units. Nice and orky. It took place on layout 4 on the chapter approved 2025-26 missions, and deployment follows the Crucible of Battle setup. Now when it comes to lists, Laz's freebooter crew are knobs aplenty. The Warlord, the legendary Lazar, is going to use Gazkul's datasheet. He'll be attached to 6 meganobs with twin kill saws. Battle line wise, there's 5 units of 10 boys for lots of objective control. Then there's 2 sets of 10 knobs, all running power claws, and one is led by a war boss with the Follow Me Lads enhancement for some extra movement. There's 2 packs of Storm Boys for secondary play, a truck, a mighty Gorknaut, a pack of Gretchen to earn some ZP, and the wild card itself, a unit of 3, yes 3, mech guns sporting bow chuckers. Moving on to the attacker, Death Guard led by Naxos the Plague Caster. They've got 2 big blobs of 10-man Plague Marines. One unit is led by a Tallyman for CP generation, and the other by Naxos himself, who's a malignant Plague Caster. There's 3 units of 10 Poxwalkers, a couple of Mephitic Blight Haulers, Fetid Bloat Drone with Heavy Blight Launcher, Plaguebird's Crawler, and the Predator Destructor. And to top it all off, there's Typhus with a pack of 3 Death Shroud Terminators, and the stinkiest of boys going, Mortarion himself. Now it's worth noting that this battle happened in the real world, but none of it was recorded on camera. It was however detailed down on paper, so I'm using a digital version to show you what happened. On to deployment. The Orcs are played fairly conservatively to make sure they're hidden from the guns to start. 1 unit of boys on their home objective so it can be sticked on round 1, and the pack of 10 knobs with the Warboss are in the Gorknaut to the south, and the other pack of 10 knobs are in the truck to the north. The rest is just spattered around with Lazar and the Meganobs in the middle, and the mech guns having a clear line of sight to that middle objective. Both units of Storm Boys are in reserves. Flicking over to the Death Guard, they've deployed aggressively. Poxwalkers on the mid board thanks to their infiltrate ability. They're hoping to act as a speed bump to the Orcs. Both the southern and middle objectives in No Man's Land have Poxwalkers on them, try and sticky them round 1. This is thanks to the Virulent Factorium detachment, making everything have sticky. The Poxwalkers to the north are just off that objective, but they do put a lot of pressure there early on. In their deployment zone to the north, we've got an armoured division with a Plaguebird's Crawler, Predator and Blight Hauler. In the middle, both sets of Plague Marines are there with Mortarion. And in the south, the second Blight Hauler is hanging out, as well as the Fetid Bloat Drone, which we'll now refer to as Bloaty Bill. The players roll off and the Orcs go first. Never ideal for a melee army, but maybe it'll give them a chance to stop those Poxwalkers from boxing them in. Secondary wise, the Orcs draw recover assets and tempting target. Naxos selects the middle objective to be the target, trying to lure the Orcs into an exposed position. The Orcs don't declare a war, but they do sticky their home objective, and the Grots gain an extra CP for the team thanks to their ability, meaning it's 2 CP for the Orcs and 1 for the Death Guard. Movement phase now. There's some shuffling around now to make sure recover assets goes off between the Gretchen on the home objective and the truck in the northern corner, whilst the northern pack of boys takes the objective up there. The Orcs choose not to be tempted by the target in the middle, but risk breaking the Poxwalker blockade on the southern side by sending out a lone pack of boys to pick them up. In the shooting phase, the mech guns attack the Poxwalkers in the middle, but only drop 3. That's Orc shooting for you. There's just one charge and the boys make it to the southern objective to take the fight to the Poxwalkers. It did cost them a CP, however, to reroll a failed charge. Unfortunately, they don't wipe the unit. 8 die, but they do no damage to the boys. I can't help but think the orc player maybe should have used unbridled carnage here just to ensure they got this kill. At the end of Laz's turn in round 1, they go to 3 points from recover assets. Let's see how the Death Guard respond. They draw Bring It Down and Assassination, tough cards in round 1. Command phase, the Poxwalkers with 2 models remaining fail at leadership and become battle shocked. The middle objective and the Death Guard's home objective is now sticked, however. Both players go up to 2 CP each. Aggressive moves here from Naxos and his Death Guard. To the south, the Blighthauler and Bloaty Bill move up to the ruins. Naxos, the Plague Caster, leads his Plague Marines towards the boys in the south too, whilst the other blob advances to the centre. The Predator gives an angle on the mech guns, and the North Blighthauler spies up some boys. Mortarion and the Plague Burst Crawler stay hidden, the middle Poxwalkers move to engage some boys, and the northern ones move into the ruins for an easy charge into the boys on that objective. Shooting phase, the Predator targets the mech guns, only dishing out 5 wounds however. Blighthauler chips off a few boys near the central Poxwalkers, but it's the Plague Burst Crawler's indirect weapon which devastates the boys sat on that northern objective, thanks to the Poxwalkers' affliction range ruining their armor save and toughness. In the charge phase, the northern Poxwalkers make it to the remaining boys, and the mid-board Poxwalkers make it into their target too. To the south, those brave boys who rushed in early get charged by both a Blighthauler and the blob of 10 Marines led by Naxos. Sure enough, they get smashed to pieces. I do think the stratagem Orc is never beaten should have been played here, just to try and pick up those 2 remaining Poxwalkers and get a cheeky 4 victory points. It's a similar story to the north, with the Poxwalkers just managing to wrap up the northern boys, securing that objective. In the middle, bit of a slapfest with neither side taking much damage. The Death Guard end round 1 with 4 victory points on primary. Those Poxwalkers have done exactly what infiltrator models do best: tie up the enemy and stop them making progress. Round 2, the Orc player still has tempting target with the middle objective and draws area denial. That makes this centre objective a big honeypot for points. They don't declare war and there is no battle shock test to take. They score 4 VP for owning an objective, and the Grots fail on digging out more CP. Both teams now have 3 CP each, that's lots to use. Not deterred by the Death Guard's successful counter-attack in the south, the Gorknaut bursts out and approaches the massive Plague Marines alone. I don't know about this play, with Morty nearby, the clapback could be brutal, and losing the Gorknaut early would be bad as it's one of the few threats that can take Mortarion on. The pack of boys that sticked the home objective also moves to the low south to support the Gorknaut in round 3. Boys unit moves to the top to take back their north objective from the Poxwalkers. A CP is spent on Here We Go to give them +2 to their charge roll. The truck drives along beside the same Poxwalkers, but it doesn't advance, just in case it needs to charge and tank shock the Poxwalkers too. Reserves now, and a unit of bold Storm Boys lands right on the middle objective, scoring both secondaries for a whopping 10 victory points. Nice play. The Predator does overwatch, but misses everything. How fickle dice can be. Shooting now. A few Poxwalkers die to sluggers up top and in the middle. A Gorknaut splits fire on the 2 remaining Poxwalkers and the Plague Marines in the south. The Plague Marines just shrug it off, but it does take out the Poxwalkers, vitally scoring Orcs 4 victory points for getting a kill that round. The mech guns shoot their bubbles into the Predator, but only dish out middling damage, nothing serious. Charge phase, the Gorknaut slams into the Plague Marines and pops tank shock right there and then, squashing 2 stinky lads immediately. Up top, the boys hunting the northern Poxwalkers sink the landing, and the truck joins in the fun too. The boys easily pick up the Poxwalkers, and the boys in the middle finally defeat the other Poxwalkers. They're all gone, no more Poxwalkers everyone. Another CP is spent on unbridled carnage on the Gorkanaut to pop sustained hits on 5s instead of 6, leaving Lazar's orcs with 0 CP. It red missed 6 Plague Marines, leaving just 2 remaining alongside the Plague Caster. They strike back for little damage. What a turn! They scored 8 on primary and an extra 10 on secondary, taking them to a respectable 21 at the midway point of round 2. With the tally set at 3 kills, there's a good chance they'll get an additional 4 VP for getting more kills than the Death Guard too. Over to the Stinky Lads. The Plague Marines with the Gorkanaut passed their leadership with flying colours. Primary wise, they own their home and southern objective, but no more, so that's 4 VP. They spend the CP to get rid of assassination and pull a tempting target. The orcs pick the northern objective. The Tallyman uses their ability to gain them an extra CP, pushing them to a total of 3 CP versus the orcs 1 CP. Into the movement phase now. The Death Guard set up to maximise damage output, as they know the war is likely to come around 3 now. They have to make the most of it before that 5+ invuln kicks in for the orcs. In the north, both the Predator and Plagueburst Crawler reposition for a 2-tier stand against the truck and knobs inside. Note the gap between the Predator and Plagueburst is wide enough to stop any piggybacking of pile-ins from the orcs. The northern Blighthauler pulls back to counterattack post-war. The full-strength Plague Marines with the Taliban in the middle continue to shuffle up, wanting to take the centre objective, whilst the southern units mostly stay still to deal with the Gorkanaut. Mortarion, as predicted, does sweep on over however. Reserves now, and Typhus and his Death Shrouds land in just outside of 6 inches of the Gorkanaut thanks to their ability, Death Approaches. Shooting phase and plenty happens. The Death Shrouds spurt their gauntlets, chopping down many of the nearby boys. Typhus, the Blighthauler, Bloaty, and both units of Plague Marines shoot into the Gorkanaut and damage it significantly. It's Mortarion who gets lucky however and finishes it off, causing the knobs to burst out, losing 1 model to emergency disembarkation and getting battle shocked. The Gork going down gives the Death Guard 4 VP on secondary for Bring It Down. The Tallyman's Plague Marines split fire, most going into the Gorkanaut, but the rest did go into the Storm Boys, who look out and only lose 2 of them. Up top, the Predator and Plagueburst do destroy the truck, slowing down the knobs inside, who lose 1 model to emergency disembark. That's 2 kills in total, to the orcs 3 kills for this round so far. Maybe there's a chance. There's just 2 charges. Mortarion and Typhus decide to work together for a brief moment to fight the knobs and Warboss. Because they're battle shocked, there's not much Lazar can do with a stratagem here. Typhus and his Death Shroud alone wipe out all 9 remaining knobs and the Warboss without Morty's help. That Affliction aura really is devastating. In 10th, the knobs and Warboss are classed as 2 separate units, so that pushes the Death Guard's total kills this round to 4, meaning they get another 4 on primary. That's got to feel real rough for the orcs losing so many points in a single round. So at the end of round 2, it's orcs of 21 and Death Guard of 20. Round 3 and Lazar has had enough. The orcs declare the war. They pick up assassination and sabotage on their secondaries. The Grots dig up another CP, taking them to 3 total versus the Death Guard's 4. Starting in the south, the boys who just watched the Gorkanaut and knobs get eaten up rightfully retreat back. The mech guns shuffle a little. Big Lazar in the middle moves into the midboard. He pops the Here We Go stratagem for an extra 2 inches on advance and charge rolls. The Storm Boys that scored big on the centre objective speed off to try pick up those 2 remaining Plague Marines with the Plague Caster. Both boys' units in the middle advance forward, whilst the knobs who jumps out the destroyed truck stick to the northern edge and sweep across to the Predator. Finally, the second set of Storm Boys comes in from reserves and finds a sweet spot in the Death Guard's deployment zone to sabotage. This completes in the Death Guard's turn, so there's still a chance it can be stopped. Nothing happens in the shooting phase as most things advance and the mech guns can't draw a line of sight on anything, so it's on to the charge phase. The boys near the 10-man Plague unit declare a charge and get overwatched. Those Plague Spewers roll low and only 3 boys go down. They make it in, and then Lazar and the Mega Knobs join in the fun too. Up top, the boys unit doesn't really have a target, but it's the knobs just above them who make it into the Predator. and those Storm Boys who kamikazed into those Plague Marines also make it in. The Mega Nobs and Lazar strike first, annihilating the 10 Plague Marines and the Tallyman in one go. That's 2 kills and assassination completed. What a result. Unfortunately, the boys are too far away from the center objective to consolidate onto it, meaning they'll have to wait another turn to sticky it. The Nobs tear the Predator to pieces, but it doesn't explode. And the Storm Boys at the bottom clear out 1 Plague Marine but fail to wipe the unit. The champion has 1 wound left. The clapback takes that unit down to just a single Storm Boy remaining. Middle of round 3, and the Orcs push up to 38 points, gaining 5 from secondary for assassination and 12 from primary. The Death Guard needs to get at least 3 more kills to stop the Orcs scoring another 4 in primary for getting more kills than them. Naxos and his Death Guard now. Orcs go up to 3 CP, Death Guard and 4. Secondary wise, they keep attempting target and gain secure no man's land. I think they should have scrapped tempting target myself, as speed typically isn't a Death Guard strength, but let's see what they do. The single Plague Marine with Plaguecaster passed their battle shock test. Movement and the Death Shrouds and Blight Halls to the south give Lazar and the Mega Nobs in the middle a very wide berth. The 5+ Feel No Pain combined with a 5+ Invul and a 2-up save during the war is clearly too big a challenge. Morty, however, moves on, heading towards the boys that retreated towards their home objective. The bloat drone that's been hanging out in the southern corner dashes out to try to stop the Storm Boys completing their sabotage. As does the Blight Hauler in the middle that pulled back in round 2. It's critical they stop the Storm Boys, otherwise they'll earn themselves 6 points at the end of this turn. The Plague Burst Crawler drives across onto their home objective. I think they should have stayed put or at least stay away from the objective, as this would force Lazar and his Orcs to make the choice between getting a kill or taking an objective rather than getting both combined. Shooting phase now, and the 5+ invulnerable save really helps beef up the durability of the Nobs from the Plague Burst shooting. They take casualties, but 5 remain. In the Death Guard's deployment, Bloaty Bill and the Blight Hauler shoot and only manage to remove 2 Storm Boys. What's going on? Some glancing shots go off on the Mega Nobs from Typhus and the Blight Hauler in the south, but no models get removed thanks to that 5+ Feel No Pain. Mortarion shoots down the Mech Gun model that had 1 wound remaining, leaving 2 alive. Charges now, and Morty goes into the boys to use them as a leapfrog to make better ground. This is why he chose not to shoot them. And he fails with double 1s. Command point reroll, taking them down to 3 CP, and then Mortarion finally makes it in. Both the Blight Hauler and Bloaty charge the Storm Boys in their deployment. They have to pull this off. But lo and behold, Lady Luck has other plans. They whiff, not a single Storm Boy dies. That's really bad news for the Death Guard. Mortarion is more blessed however, and easily picks up the boys' units. Ongoing now, the single Storm Boy just can't finish off that lone Plague Marine champion and gets slapped out of the sky for his trouble. And the Storm Boys at the back hit for a couple of wounds, but nothing of note. So at the end of round 3 the Death Guard has only got 2 kills, whilst the Orcs got 3. So Orcs gain another 4 VP for getting the most kills, and sabotage goes off thanks to the Storm Boys clinging on, taking them to a huge 48, so 24 in primary and 24 in secondary, nice and even. Death Guard managed to get a small version of secure no man's land on the southern point, but that was it. Still no tempting target achieved. The Orcs are pulling ahead, but their big round has come and gone. Can they maintain the momentum? Round 4, the Grots earn another CP for the Orcs, taking them to 5 against the Death Guard's 4 CP. Nothing needs a battle shock test, and secondary wise they got extend battle lines and no prisoners. Easy! The Grots on Lazar's home objectives pull back to the southern corner to hide from Mortarion and make that potential charge harder. The Mech Guns stand firm however. The Nobs in the north move over to the Plague Burst Crawler and lose 2 lads to Overwatch, taking them down to a unit of 3. The boys that smashed into the Plague Marines in the middle move towards the Plague Burst Crawler as well. The other boys that did no fighting last round moved to the middle objective in hopes of sticking it. Here We Go is used on Lazar and the Mega Nobs to help their charge as they move south towards the Death Shroud. I think this is a critical error however. It slows the momentum they've got going towards the Death Guard's objective. In other news, the Storm Boys in the east stay put. Shooting phase, the mech guns target and fail to hurt Mortarion, and it does trigger Mortarion's inflamed reprisal ability, letting him shoot back, and he takes out a second mech gun. Oof. The Knobs use a grenade stratagem to dish out 3 damage on the Plague Burst, taking it down to 9 wounds remaining. Charge phase, Lazar aims to charge Typhus and the Death Shroud. They need a roll of 10. And they fail! Command point reroll to try again. And still no luck. That's really bad news for the Orcs. They're just sitting ducks now. The boys and the Knobs near the Plague Burst do make it in, however. Not much to say in the fight phase. The Knobs and boys do minimal damage against the Plague Burst, and that was after using the Unbridled Carnage stratagem. Toughness 10 just proves too much. It's down to 5 wounds remaining, and then there's nothing on the slapback. They do take the objective from the Death Guard, however, thanks to having more OC due to the 3 Knobs on it and the single boy. Ongoing combat, and the Storm Boys finally go down to the Blight Hauler and Bloaty. No kills or anything for the Orcs that turn, but they do score 8 on primary for controlling an objective marker and more than the Death Guard. They scored the secondary extend battle lines for 4 VP, pushing them up to 60 points. The Death Guard really have some work to do here. Bottom of round 4 now, and the Death Guard go up to 4 CP, whilst the Orcs go up to 2. They get 4 VP on primary for holding the southern objective. Secondaries now, they still hold on to tempting target and get overwhelming force. Naxos and the lone Plague Marine fail their battle shock test, meanwhile the Plague Burst Crawler passes. They use the Plague Burst stratagem to increase everyone's contagion range by 3 inches, taking units to a 12-inch range now. It does cost a big 2 CP however. Movement here, and Mortarion heads towards Lazar and the Meganobs in the middle. It seems they want the big fight showdown between him and Lazar, ignoring the Orcs' home objective or the tempting target. Bit of a wild choice if you ask me. Going for broke, the mech guns fire Overwatch at him in a Hail Mary. Ugh, but what a waste of a CP that was. It does nothing. Typhus and the Death Shroud also move towards Lazar, as does the Blight Hauler and the lone Plague Marine with Plague Caster. The Plague Burst falls back with Bloaty and the Blight Hauler moving up to take on those boys and the 3 remaining Knobs on their home objective. Shooting now, Bloaty and the Blight Hauler split their fire into the Knobs on the boys on their home objective. The Knobs cling on with a single wound model, whilst the boys take minimal damage. The shooting really isn't on the side of the Death Guard right now. Mortarion sends some more shots into the mech guns, and finally, with the use of a command point reroll, finishes them off. That's a kill for the Death Guard. Everything else, so Typhus, Death Shroud and the Blight Hauler in the south, goes into the Meganobs and just cuts through them. Some real bad rolls for the Orcs there. Charges, it's all pretty straightforward, but the Death Shrouds make it in after a reroll, dropping the Death Guard to 0 CP. The Blight Hauler also makes it into the 1 remaining Knob, whilst Bloaty fails to make it into the boys. Crucially however, the Blight Hauler does pick off that 1 remaining Knob in the fight phase, which not only scores points for the overwhelming force secondary, but also takes back that objective for the Death Guard, as its 3 OC is higher than the single Orc boys' 2 OC. Back to the middle here, and the Meganobs just get cut down by Typhus and his Death Shroud. Worse yet, the first save for Makari, that is usually a 2+ invuln, fails on a 1, and that's non-rerollable. So the rest of the damage goes through and finishes off Lazar. What a turnaround. End of round 4, and the Death Guard score big. 12 on primary for owning an objective, getting a kill and getting more kills than their opponent. 5-0 in this case, and then another 5 on secondary for destroying 2 enemy units on objectives. Death Guard on 51 to the Orcs 60. Final round, and the Orcs are looking in bad shape. They go up to 2 CP as the Grots fail to scavenge, whilst the Death Guard go up to 1 CP. Lazar uses insane bravery for 1 CP and the Orc boys on the home objective of the Death Guard, just to give them some options. Secondaries, they gain Defend Stronghold and bring it down. One's possible, the other less so. Primary wise, they own 3 objectives to the Death Guard's 2, so they get 8 VP, pushing them to a juicy 68 overall. Not much happens in this turn. The Grots stay still, whilst the boys in the middle and on the Death Guard's home objective retreat to minimise kills. Here We Go is used on the boys in the middle to advance them an extra 2 inches. Death Shrouds go for Overwatch but roll low, couple of boys get frazzled, but that's it. What a lucky break, they must be wearing blue. And that's the turn. over to the Death Guard. So it's 51 to the Orcs 68. They need to make up 17 points for a draw and 18 for a win. And they've got to stop Defend Stronghold going off for the Orcs, which will give them an additional 3 points. They use a CP to swap out Tempting Target for recover assets, and they also draw Extend Battle Lines for their secondaries. That's a possible 9 points right there. It's a bad start though, as both battle shocks fail. That's the Plague Marine in the south and the Plague Burst Crawler in a deployment zone. They won't be able to help with recover assets. Mortarion moves back towards the Orcs' home objective, as in my opinion they should have stayed, aiming to long bomb charge into the greenskin. Others shuffle around to maximise objectives, line up kills, or do recover assets. Shooting now, Blight Hauler in No Man's Land recovers assets, as does the Blight Hauler in their own deployment, meaning they can't fire. Plague Burst Crawler and Bloaty shoot into the boys that try to run away, and they do take them out. The Orc player did use a command point reroll to reroll a save, but it made no difference. The Death Shroud try again against the boys up top, but they manage to cling on. It doesn't really matter though, as they've already got a kill and the Orcs didn't get any kills, so they've maxed out on primary there. Mortarion however doesn't shoot the Gretchen, so it doesn't make this charge any longer. And this is what it all comes down to, Mortarion making a 12-inch charge with no CP in the bank. Will he do it? No, he fails! And with that we get our final score. The Death Guard score big, with all the kills and objectives maxing out on primary. That's a big 50 out of 50 for the full game. Then they get an additional 3 on recover assets and 4 on extend battle lines, pushing them to a grand total of 68 to match the Orcs 68. However, the Orcs Defend Stronghold does go off, which pushes them to 71. Ladies and gentlemen, after the extra 10 for both armies being fully painted, and they were in real life, our final score is Death Guard with 78 versus the winners, the Orcs, with 81. What a close match that was, and genuinely a fun one to play, even if both players made some mistakes. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to play over 100 games of 10th edition alone, and there's been countless incredible moments with friends and family alike. Much like this match, the edition has had its ups and downs, but the overall experience has definitely been positive, and for that I'm thankful, which is why I wanted to give this edition a proper goodbye as we all now turn to 11th edition. If you made it this far in the video, I really hope you liked it, and if you didn't enjoy it, I thank you for the time nonetheless. Please do like and subscribe, as it really does help me out, and until next time, keep on crumping.